Welcome to A History Mystery. I'm Mimi, and today I wanted to get into a subject that a lot of us may be familiar with: Photoshop, the altering of photographic images. Our phones and laptops come with all sorts of programs that can filter out imperfections, change our backgrounds, and even project images of things that aren't there. Photoshopped images are everywhere in our society, used to enhance the appearance of a subject, from people to food to vacation destinations. But what about the days before iPhones and Snapchat filters and Adobe Photoshop programs? Surely the people of the past didn't have these fabulous yet destructive tools for their photos, right? Wrong. Not only did the people of the past, including folks in Thomasville, alter their images, they did it all the time. Let's take a look at how they did this and some examples from our own collections here at the Thomasville History Center. So first off, how did they do this? The most well-known type of early photography, invented in the 1830s and called daguerreotype, was made using a glass plate and several chemicals. These chemicals would react when exposed to light and leave behind an image called a negative, the reverse in terms of light of how the image actually appeared. So light sections looked dark and dark sections looked light. Another process would reverse the negative to the positive and fix the chemicals so they no longer reacted with light, preserving the image. But this only created one image at a time and couldn't be used to make copies. That means any editing could only be done once, and there was no room for mistakes. This use of Photoshop was limited to what could be painted over the image. Here's a photo from our collection of an enslaved woman, only known as Sarah, from Thomasville. Someone came back in and painted gold over her jewelry and gave her a black headscarf. This is pretty typical for this kind of Photoshop. Jewelry was often highlighted, clothes could be shaded in, and cheeks were often painted to look rosy on what is otherwise a very gray image. We have several examples of this in our collection. Here's a man modeling his Oddfellows uniform that was painted in purple and gold. And here's a lady whose entire picture was painted in, a very expensive treatment. This method for adding color remained popular in photography until the invention and widespread use of colorized film. Here's a later example from World War I of local soldier Ellis Meeks. Thanks to the paint and paper used, these later images were often slightly blurry. Not long after the publication of daguerreotypes came other types of photography. Sometimes these types improved upon earlier technology by allowing for multiple copies to be made from one negative. Now photographers had the opportunity to edit their pictures. One common way to do this was retouching, developed in 1846. After developing the negative, the photographer would use a little light box to see the image through the glass. Using a pencil or a fine-tipped brush with ink, he could add layers to the image, covering up blemishes as needed, smoothing out textures, or even adding back parts of the image lost due to overexposure of the film. In our photo collection, retouching was often used to replace missing parts of an image. However, these artists could get a little heavy-handed at times. The woman in this picture has been colored back in after the negative came out too light. Look closely at her hands, and you'll see they almost look like she's wearing very stiff gloves. In the book, The Library of Practical Photography, which was published a few decades too late to save this picture, the author writes that amateur photographers try to get results too fast, leading to less realistic-looking images, like this one. On the other hand, photos could also be etched. Using a small pocket knife, the artist could shave away parts of the film on a negative, removing them for various reasons, but most commonly to smooth out wrinkles or shave down a person's figure. Here's a photo of a famous visitor to Thomasville, Dorothy Wheeler Keith, an artist and the daughter of Candace Wheeler, another famous artist. Like many ladies of the era, she has an impossibly tiny waist. Or does she? It turns out many of the images you see of women with waists the size of toothpicks have been edited. If we zoom in closely, we can see a slightly fuzzy area at her waist. This is where the photographer etched out her sides and filled in the missing part with pencil. If we draw the line back in, we can see she looks more proportional, and maybe more comfortable too. Etching and retouching helped artists develop another trick for their photography. Don't you hate it when a perfectly good group picture is ruined by one person moving their head? Or have you ever wanted to add someone into a picture that wasn't present when the photo was taken? Just like today, people of the past had this problem, and photographers had a solution. By taking multiple photos in the studio, a photographer could pick and choose the best parts from each photo. Take this picture, for example. Look closely at Mr. Hardy's head, and you may notice a ring of light around it. He may have been a nice guy, but that's not an angel halo he's wearing. The light ring formed when the artist etched away Billy's face on the negative, and then exposed it to another negative of Billy Hardy. He may have blinked or moved his head, or made a sour face in one negative, and moved his arms or legs during the other negative. The photographer chose to combine the good parts of each negative while removing the bad to get one good picture. You can also see where the artist had to draw Billy's hat back in. Here's one of my favorite examples of Photoshop in our collection. This picture shows members of the Jurger family living in Germany during the 1860s. Look closely and you'll see that the whole image has been retouched. Every family member has been outlined, and in some cases the furniture they sit on had to be completely redrawn. Why is this photo so bad? The baby in this picture gives us the answer. Look closely, and you'll see that her head is not totally in proportion to her body. She's also wearing a little halo of pencil shading around 95% of her face. Just like Mr. Hardy in our last photo, this baby must have moved during the photo shoot. The artist had to take her out and put a better image back in. But that decision came with other problems. In order to put the two images together, the rest of the image was exposed to light for too long and came out far too light. To fix this, the artist went back in and drew what was missing, to the best of his ability. But not every retouch was to fix mistakes. For some people, it could be a great way to be photographed with someone otherworldly. By the late 1800s, a new craze was sweeping the nation. The practice of spiritualism encouraged followers to try to communicate with spirits beyond our mortal plane. Charles Lapham of the Lapham-Patterson House was intrigued by this practice. While traveling through New England, he visited a spirit photographer, a cross between a spirit reader and a photographer. Like many others who did this, the photographer sat with Charles and talked through his life story. At the end of the visit, the photographer took a photo of Charles. When Charles received the finished image, this is what he saw: himself, surrounded by the spirits of loved ones and historic figures, all of whom were now watching over him from beyond. Now, whether or not these people were watching Charles, the photographer certainly wasn't endowed with the ability to capture spirits on film. But he was endowed with a certain set of editing skills and tools. Unlike the previous photos, this later photographer was able to blend his additional images into his original negative of Charles. How many faces do you see? We know of at least 7. Some photographers rebelled against the practice of retouching. They believed that a true artist would be able to adjust the lighting, figure, and camera in order to capture the best image without needing to touch up the image afterwards. A.W. Mahler, a Thomasville photographer, was one of these artists. His portraits rarely show signs of being retouched. Instead, he softened the camera focus and adjusted the lighting and the pose of his subjects to achieve the best results. Like in this photo of Judge Hugh James McIntyre. He focused on the judge's face, to bring your eye away from the rest of him, and shone a spotlight on the opposite side of the judge to soften the light as it came across his face. This reduced the appearance of wrinkles and unflattering shadows across the face, leaving us with a handsome photo of the judge. These techniques are still popular with photographers today. Not much has changed over the years when it comes to photography. People still want to look their best, and some go to extremes in achieving a certain look. If this video interested you, be sure to check out our website and social media where you can find more pictures like these, and be sure to leave us a like on this video. What topic would you like to see on an episode of History Mystery? Let us know in the comments, and as always, thanks for watching!